All right, so this is ValorCraft Workshop. My name is Will, and this is the Monday morning brief. And you may be asking yourself, well, it's not Monday and it's not morning either. What gives? And I'll tell you. Monday this week was Martin Luther King Day, so I did not come into the studio that day. And sorry, I'm just trying to get these windows lined up. And yesterday, I, once again tried to pop up online and struggled with getting the software called OBS to play nicely with me as I, produced this show or as I linked up. And now I'm just looking back and just making sure you're not mirrored the way I am in the screen. All right. So what does that explain for last week of not being up on time? Well, last week was also big struggles. So I tried to get online yesterday with a live stream, and I really want to keep these things shorter, like no more than 30 minutes, really aiming for 20 minutes in the long run. Last week I went for like an hour and a half because I have a tendency just to ramble on. So I've got notes this week too. So yesterday I tried to push it up against a backstop of having to leave the studio, and so I figured if I had to leave at a certain time, I couldn't possibly run over on my video. But then I struggled getting the video set up right and ran out of time and didn't have 2 minutes to record at that point. So that. Why am I doing live videos? Well, I was gonna say I can get into that in a minute, but maybe I'll just hit that now, and same things will come back up over and over, I think. I'm not really calling it content creation because I'm using YouTube and Instagram and writing on Substack more as documentation of what I'm doing here, and not as a performance of coming up with a topic for content, a topic idea, an idea, content idea, writing a script, and like creating content around something that wasn't there already. Instead, I want to document the thing that's here already, whether it's me thinking through problem solving or project approaches or planning or whatever it is, or making a project, working on something, building something. I don't want to build it for the sake of making the content. I want to build it and document it and then share the work that I'm doing. So a little mind shift around chicken or the egg, which comes first, in the sense of this studio, ValorCraft Workshop. This is all fits in with this framework. And again, I'm going to jump around a lot. You're going to hear these words often because this framework that I've been working on developing, that I called the H3 framework, is head, hands, and heart. And this is how I try to view all things, whether it's projects or products that I'm building in the shop, or it's family life, or it's extracurricular activities, recreational activities, working out at the gym, doing yoga, doing Pilates, ice skating, whatever the case may be, travel. It should be feeding one, if not all three of these areas of the head. My thinking, it needs to feed me mentally, stimulating me mentally. My heart, like, it needs to bring me joy. And hands, sometimes it's just a physical effort, and there's certainly joy in that too. I did say I was going to set my timer. So now that I'm already in a few minutes, let me set it for 30 minutes now, and we'll roll from there. So again, ValorCraft Workshop is the name of the channel. That workshop is this physical space for sure, but it's also the mental space. And this channel is intended more for talking out loud, thinking out loud, and sharing my experiences here, letting you come along for the ride as I transition from 32 years of military service into a retired life in which I've chosen not to work a traditional job, the great intent not to work for another person again. Of course, as soon as you open a store and you get customers, you're working for somebody else again immediately. So I'm balancing all these different thoughts and philosophies around making and earning money, feeding the joy of creation. So it all stems around that. It's that trifecta, or those like three overlapping circles of head, hands, heart, that Venn diagram that comes from those three overlapping circles, and that spot in the middle is sort of the sweet spot for where I want to work. So say all that, and then I got my outline up, and then my outline jumped on me. So let me get back to it. So again, ValorCraft Workshop, my name is Will. Again, this is me thinking out loud. I'm a veteran. I'm a maker, creative person, head, hands, heart lens. We talked about that. My new battle rhythm, it's a military term for sort of my schedule of things. I had been doing a lot of these plan of the day videos and just sort of like YouTube shorts almost daily, just to get in a habit of producing some video content every day. And it turned out to be a lot more like, hey, here's what's on my 3D printer today. And here's what I'm going to do today. And here's the shop that I'm going to clean up because it's a giant mess and I can't do any creative work if the spaces are covered with boxes and other junk. And then the next day is like, oh, I didn't get to all those things I said I was going to do yesterday. And then the plan of the day after that was like, oh, still another one. And then it gets to Friday. It's like, well, I better empty the garbage at least, like accomplish something this week, mop the floor in the bathroom, clean the toilet, whatever. And then they're end of the week, and we'll start again Monday with here's the list of things I wish I did last week and I didn't. The friction point in doing those, besides the fact that they're probably boring for most people and didn't add a lot of value to you, like unless you really enjoy watching a guy not get his to-do list done. There's a friction point of editing video. So I'm trying to make a short video. I think it's a Mark Twain quote, or at least it's been attributed to him, but whether or not he really said it, it was like something along the lines of, I would have written you a shorter letter, but I didn't have enough time. And I found this with the shorts a lot. It's a 3-minute video or less than 3-minute video. You're capped at 3 minutes. But that for me, it usually started with 6 to 8 minutes. I should say 6 to 7 minutes. 6, 7 minutes of content that I had to distill 3 minutes out of. So pull out all the ums, the ahs, the kind ofs, all the jargon, all the slang, and just little crutch words, filler words. Cut out the silence gaps, or cut out the repeat talk. And that would get me down to 4.5 minutes. And now I had to make some real choices of what 1 minute, 1.5 minute content am I going to pull out to get this thing down to 3 minutes. And you'll find most of my plan of the day videos were like 3 minutes on the dot or 2:59. And occasionally you can get like 3:02 or something. Like YouTube would allow you to sneak a couple extra minutes in. So that was a real friction point. And then to try to make any longer videos, again, I was going in with that mindset of like, let me create the script, let me, plan the shots, and I'm going to make this video about this topic or that topic. Or I'm going to write an essay on the thing, and then I'm going to make a video that kind of accompanies it. And it's like, the production of that is just a lot. And it really almost just becomes delivering something I already wrote, like on an essay on Substack in the first place. And it's like, well, why do I need to make a video to go with it too? Or the video could be separate. It's kind of what I'm doing now. I'll get to that in a second. So again, that became very challenging, a lot of friction points of just having the time. Like when I'm in the studio space, I want to work, I want to make, or at least want to talk about working and making, creating, whether or not I ever get it done. At least I like talking about it. And so the long videos didn't happen. I've got lists of 100, 200, 300 topics or video ideas, and most of them are just sitting on the shelf waiting to be dealt with, or they've been recorded. There's a number of them that I've actually recorded content for, or the source, or the raw video for, and just haven't edited them because you have to set aside that time to edit. If you don't set aside the time to edit, then what was the point in the first place? And I can go on and on of examples of that throughout my career of recording something and not setting aside the time to edit. So you have to build all of that in. So the thought here of doing lives, see, I brought that back around so quickly. The thought of doing the lives is on Fridays, I'm going to publish an essay either on my ValorCraft Workshop Substack, if it's more studio workshop related, or on my Moments of Will Substack, if it's a little bit more heady, philosophical, just general purpose type thing. Allow a couple days to ruminate on those things. And then Monday morning, do a Monday morning brief of talking a little bit in response to the essay, not as a script, but just as a jumping off point to just sort of riff on the topics and then move forward from there with what's going on in the shop and what I'm doing that week, what I'm thinking through that week. I really want to make it more about what I'm thinking, what problems I'm trying to solve, what mental work I'm doing, and developing the direction of the studio, as opposed to just like, I have this task and this order came in and someone ordered this duck or that duck. I make ducks. And more just about the headspace. Not so much business as it is the hobby and the craft and the act of creation. All right, I probably spent way more than my 2 or 3 minute intro time on that. So the rhythm now is Friday's essay, Monday, the live reflection at the beginning of the week. Monday nights, I can extract some, if there's any nice morsels in this thing, I can pull those out, make shorts out of those, create other videos from them, other piece of content maybe, or not. But at least I got this out there. That's the plan. So last week, this all started with, really about 2 weeks ago now, I came across a Notion workbook folder that was like my retirement planner. And I created this thing probably 3 years ago when I was in that last year of military service, when I was getting ready to retire. And I came across a folder or a page that was called Retirement Year One. And pretty much everything that I thought was going to be the reality of my retirement years, like wake up in the morning and do yoga for an hour, and then read for an hour, and then write for an hour, and then whatever, walk around a pond, or, go spend time in nature or whatever, and then do work for 4 hours. I don't know what that work was going to be. Number of things, I think. Actually, I do know. Real estate agent, notary, workshop owner, content creator, landlord, property manager, I don't know. All these different things. Day trader, I think, was part of it. And I even assigned all this like income I was going to be pulling in from all these different streams. Yeah, none of those came true. So this is where all this thing started, my existential crisis of, holy crap, man, I'm like 3 years in, 2.5 years into retirement, and nothing's going as I planned. But that's the thing, it wasn't really a plan. It was more of an ideal, of like, wouldn't this be nice? But it was before I knew what was to come. It was before I knew I would be getting this space that was started with just the woodworking equipment I've gathered over the years. I've had workshops every house I've lived in for the last, say, 25 years. Started as just like a little storage room off a carport was probably my first shop. And then it was a 2.5 car garage, where it was a basement in Alaska, where I started turning pens out of caribou antler. Those were horrible. Anyone that owns one of those pens should return it to me or throw it out, and I'll make you a new one. And I still have a bunch of antlers, so that's something else I want to make in the shop, kind of a throwback to the original piece. But so a lot of lathe work and cutting boards and these kinds of things that I really enjoy doing. So this was going to be a woodworking shop, was really the intention. And then I bought a CNC router. And then it was like, ooh, this opened up all these different possibilities. Still in the woodworking realm, but computer-aided design and machining. And that was really neat. And then I was buying bits for that. There's a guy who lives over in Mesa that makes the bits that I use, the router bits. And when I went to pick those up one day, he showed me his 3D printer, which I always thought was super nerdy. And like, I think I've made fun of guys that had 3D printers. before. And then I was like, wow, look at all the cool stuff he made. So then I got one, the same one he got. And then I got another one. And then I got two more. But before all that, I bought a laser, and then I bought a second laser. And then I've got the 4 printers in the print farm now. So all these things, I had no idea that they were going to happen 3 years ago when I first left the military, or even before I left the military. So I would have had no idea. So it wasn't really a failure of planning. It was just, I didn't build in time to review where these things were, or really label the importance of, like, how important was this thing versus that thing, of what I thought I might want to do in retirement, or all that. Anyway, this opportunity came up, and I took it. I'm glad I did. This is, the space is fantastic, and I'm sure we'll explore the space more as I clean it up. But that's been the other piece. The other friction point has been, like, when I first started this channel a couple years ago, people are like, oh, give us the shop tour. It's like, well, it's a mess. So I'll clean it up this week, and next week we'll do the shop tour. Well, next week it got a little messier. All right, next week. And then it got a little messier, and it got a little messier, and it got other projects. And so I've never done the shop tour video either. Like, a lot of people like that kind of thing. And we'll do one eventually, like next week. But again, that's sort of content for content's sake rather than what I'm really looking to do. And so I'm looking to document what I'm doing and not just, like, create content for content's sake. Where was I going with that? That's the origin of the shop. And that's the origin of the story of retirement year 1. And none of those things really happening the way it said. And while many others, people that are a little bit more savvy in the YouTube realm, folks older than me, and I sit there and scratch my head sometimes, they're like, man, how do you have a channel? How do you have so many followers? How are you making so much money doing this? And well, they're consistent, and they're doing things right. So back in December, they were all doing their 2025 in review, or things that were leaving 2025, looking forward to 2026. Then they did all their content, they prepped it so that New Year's Eve or January 1st or 2nd, they released their, here's how I'm going to be successful in YouTube in 2026, or here's how I'm going to, like, fully kill it in the shop in 2026, or if I were starting a YouTube channel in 2026, these are the things I would do, or these are the 20 books you should read in 2026. All that stuff, they have like this plan. Like, and then, I mean, I had plans to make that plan, but that never happened. And then January 1st came, and I stood there like a deer in the headlights, like, shit, I don't have a plan. And now it's what, January 21st, and I still don't have that plan. But that's what January has become for me. January is sort of the, all right, let's figure out what we're doing with this thing. And it's been I've spent a lot of time on this now, going through this. So that's the point of this channel now, is you to get inside my head a little bit and listen to me think out loud as we move forward. So that's why the 2026 goals weren't ready yet. I wasn't ready to make them yet. I didn't take the time to really consider all the factors involved. And right now I'm still talking to myself, which is totally cool. No one is watching. That's fine. I'm sure this will build. And once I start doing it Monday mornings, I'm sure there'll be even fewer. So I think before I can really tell where I'm going or what the direction is this year, I need to know where I am. And there are many factors that go into that I'm not going to go deep into today on this video. But for myself, I've really been clarifying, okay, where are we right now in time? Like, let's get back to what the intention of the shop was in the first place. Because this shop was supposed to be my creative play space. This was supposed to be a place for creation, exploration, discovery. And as soon as you make that first sale, like you open an Etsy shop, you make that first sale of something, then you start hunting around everywhere of, like, what else sells on Etsy? What else do I have tools? You start searching things like, what can I make on a laser engraver or laser cutter that would sell on Etsy? And so you start finding things, and I've made ornaments, and, I make a lot of coasters. I've engraved thousands of coasters. I do these ammo can whiskey gift sets, do a number of different things. But with a laser engraver, there are thousands, maybe millions of products you can engrave and make. And certainly I could make about anything. In fact, I put a note on my sales slips when I send out products. I can engrave almost anything on almost everything. I've engraved a banana just as an art project. If you tape a banana to a wall and it's art, I think you can engrave one with your business's logo, and that's art too. I'm not going to sell it. And in fact, I ate it instead. But just because you can do anything with the tool doesn't mean you have to. So that's an important point in the theme that I've pondered a lot lately. Just because you have a skill to do something doesn't mean you have to do it. Just because you've done something for years doesn't mean you have to keep doing it. And I have to remind myself of this every time I'm in a grocery store line and I see some kid bagging my groceries horribly. I don't have to. It's like those insurance commercials, like becoming your parents kind of thing. It's like, I don't need to teach him how to do it. I don't have to take a job at Fry's or Kroger or wherever and become a bagger just to say, hey, everybody, this is how you bag groceries. Instead, I can write about it. I can talk about it here. I can rate different grocery stores on their ability to bag groceries, whatever. Or, if I don't like the way the Starbucks barista is making coffee, I don't need to become a barista myself to prove whatever point to whoever, like, hey, I can do this too. Like, not necessary. But the intention of this shop, and I don't even know if that's where I was going with this in the first place. The intention of this shop has been, again, as that creation space, discovery space, and not as let's turn this into a production facility to make, 1,000 coasters or toy ducks, although I do make toy ducks, and I'll drop the link for What the Duck Toy Company in the notes. I'm sure we'll talk about that more later. So I want to get back to the original intention of the shop, which is why I've sort of reframed what I'm calling this. And it's still called ValorCraft Workshop. And the workshop is the physical space, but the workshop even more so is the space between the empty space between these two ears, right? It's the thinking space. It's the workshop of the mind, probably even more than the physical space, which makes it transportable. So I leave for the summer for 2 months every year, go overseas, and I can carry the workshop with me if it's in my head. If it's physically here in the shop, obviously I can't take that with me there. But the physical workshop is the vehicle that I'm using right now to think through problem sets that are in my head, centered around creativity mostly, that transition from a very structured military 32-year, 3+ decades career in the military, living in that structured system, doing work that others have requested of you, told you to do, whatever, and intentionally wanting to not be in that situation again, not have to deal with someone else's views on things, but only my own. So I'm going to let that sit where it is for now. So I'm reframed, it's semantics, I guess, studio, workshop, whatever is conjured up in your head. For me, I'm keeping the name ValorCraft Workshop, but the physical space I'm calling my studio now, because in my head, at least, studio is more of a thinking space. I think the way you name a place feeds the behaviors that happen in that space. So this becomes more about creation, more about, and I have a music background too, so studio fits that as well. You go into a studio to create. You go into a workshop to produce. And I'm thinking, when I say workshop, I'm thinking woodworking shop, and I think that pops in a lot of people's heads. I could say multimedia workshop because I work with lasers, I work with, so I work with stone, I work with glass, I work with plastics and 3D printers, I work with wood. But when you hear multimedia, you probably think broadcast. And when you hear workshop, sometimes you think of like, oh, I went to this workshop this weekend on such and such topic. So there's a lot of different meanings of workshop. It's probably a fine term. That's why I'm keeping it in the title. I still think it's the right term for that. But when I come here, I'm slowly morphing out of saying I'm going to the shop and I'm saying I'm going to the studio. And it sets my head right for that. Because I want this to be a place about thinking, a place about making, and it being a place where ideas from different areas can be brought together and collide and ideally come up with something new from there. Another thing I want to talk about is how play precedes product. And it's so easy, as I alluded to earlier. Once you sell that first coaster, 3D printed duck, whatever it is, cutting board, whenever you make that first thing, make that first sale, suddenly it becomes all about what other things can I sell to make money with the thing. And it pulls me right away from what I came into this space to do originally. So I want to play, I want to explore, I want to discover, I want to create. And some of those things are going to be crap and they're going to go right in the garbage. Some of them may just be functional for me. Some of them might be, hey, that's kind of cool. Maybe I can find a market for that. I do have a few different Etsy shops and a couple other e-commerce sites. So several different avenues to be able to put this kind of stuff out there. And I'm looking at my timer. I got 5 minutes left, but I'll probably ignore that because I think I'm moving through at a pretty good clip right now. So I want to keep that creative play upstream from everything else. Like it doesn't start with a product idea and then reverse engineer it and build it. I want to start with the blank sheet of paper, drawing, sketching things out, cutting something, seeing this item, this product that's out there, that product's out there. And like, what happens if I smush the two together and, create a clock, analog clock that looks like a duck, but it's actually a taco holder. I don't know. Find ways to mush things together, mash things together and see what works. So when I've filled my whole day up 100% with tasks, it doesn't leave any time left to explore and just have some free play in the studio to make these collisions happen. So I need to schedule things a little bit different to be, make effective use of my time here. But if I fill up, I'm usually here about 6 hours each day. If I fill up that entire 6 hours with nothing but production notes or tasks, that's all I'm going to do. In fact, I usually underestimate how much time everything takes, and I don't even get those things done. So I'm going to build more time in for thinking, for playing, for exploring, discovering. So that slack that I build into the schedule, it's not laziness so much. It's there by design, or will be there by design. And I've also come to grips with letting some things bounce. So I had a leader I worked for in Alaska some years ago. It was probably like 15 years ago. Math, 17 years ago. It was a while ago. Maybe it's almost 20 years ago now. Wow, long time ago. And it was at a time where the Army, like mandatory training in the Army was just like, oh my God, what now? What do we have to learn today that, we weren't okay with yesterday not knowing? And he had told me, as a colonel, I won't bust him out by name. I don't know if he's on the social medias anyway, but he had told me, hey, look, you can't, like, if you try to get everything done that the Army's requiring of you, you would have no time for anything else. So it's your job as a commander to juggle all these balls. Some of them are made of glass, some are made of rubber. And it's your job then to determine which ones are glass and which ones are rubber, which ones you need to keep in the air, and which ones you can let bounce. So it kind of goes back to I can do anything, but just because I can do anything doesn't mean I have to do everything, right? So picking and choosing, and probably more important than the picking what I'm going to do, because what that turns into for me, and you can physically see it in the shop, because it's like, oh, I bought a new tool. Good. Like that's there now, great. Then I bought another tool and then that's there now. And then I bought another tool and then that's there now. And the next thing you know, you're walking around with all these, rocks, or I guess that's a better analogy. You put that first rock in the rucksack. Okay, that's not too bad. Well, then you got a new rock to replace it, but you didn't get rid of the first one and you put the other rock in. And this happens with tasks, this happens with tools, this happens with everything. Next thing you know, you're carrying this load, and you should have let some of these things bounce, or you should have laid some of these things down a long time ago. So more than trying to find what I should be doing or what I'd like to do or what I'd like to make, I think I'm going to focus a little bit more on what I'm not going to do, my do not do list. I'm looking down at my 30 seconds left. I'm going to reset my timer, which I said I wasn't going to do. Yeah. So a little bit more focus on what I'm not going to do, what I'm going to let bounce, and protecting those things that were the most important reason. Well, and reassessing what those important reasons were for having the space, or just in general. Like I was going to play hockey once a week or twice a week. I played one season with a team, and I would play pickup games a couple days a week before the shop. Since the shop, I've kind of let all of that go and haven't done. So if the important thing is like, hey, I want to get on the ice again, and even if it's just me out there skating by myself, not playing a game, like I need to prioritize those things. But you can't make everything a number one priority and have time for anything else. So, yes. So there's a little, maybe this is the place to fit this in. Another colleague I worked with, it's funny referring to him as a colleague. I think he'd laugh at it too. A friend of mine who's been in 2 of the units with me during my career, deployed with me as well. I think he said this when he was getting ready to leave the unit, like at his farewell, maybe from the first duty station I was at with him. And he said, the band's going to experience addition by subtraction when he leaves. And I thought it was the funniest thing. Basically, he was saying the band's going to get better as soon as he leaves. So this concept of addition by subtraction is one that's stuck with me. And I share a story, like I shared it for the rest of my career after he first said it. But sometimes it is like the thing that moves you forward is pulling, or I don't want to say moves you forward because he's a good guy and he did a lot of great things. But the road to improvement sometimes isn't like finding the other thing you're supposed to do or adding something else. Oh, if I just had one more, spice, or you're making a spice mix, like maybe it's leaving something out is going to actually make this thing better than putting everything in the kitchen sink in, being a little bit more selective, or, focusing on, like, if you had a big block of marble and you're making a sculpture, a lot of sculpture work is about what you remove, not about what you add on to the thing. That's probably the better analogy. Addition by subtraction. All right, my week ahead. Here's what I'm actually doing this week. And I'm not doing plan of the day videos anymore, but just when I say the rest of the week, at this point, I'm talking Thursday and Friday. I do have an order in for ammo cannon set for a Marine warrant officer. So that's happening today, tonight, tomorrow. I'm going to get that all done so I can get that shipped out for them. And I'm doing a lot of work for my Pilates instructor studio, some signage. I've been talking about this for months, and it's really coming to a conclusion here soon. So the work has started, it's moving along, and I'm doing some handyman work at the studio too. So all those things are kind of happening here in January, very beginning of February, and then that monkey be off my back. And I'm going to document, I'm doing some big interior signage work. I did exterior sign for her last year. It turned out great. They're testing some new skills for me. So I'm going to document that to share the story of these signs that I'm building. And there's going to be some cool Easter eggs in that I can't share yet because I don't want her to know about them. And we can all discover it together. That'd be really cool. And then, working on that. Some skill building too. I know the off-ramp, like the physical space of the studio isn't going to be with me forever. This is my vehicle from now for telling these stories, for sharing my thoughts on life in general. Again, right now, the vehicle is the workshop, but some other time that vehicle may be an airplane flying somewhere, or it may be me sitting on a beach, the lounge chair in the sun in Turkey might be my vehicle that month. So as I know, I need to develop an off-ramp. I don't need timing for that off-ramp yet, but I need to develop the off-ramp so that I think basically I don't leave this mess for someone else to deal with. The reality is I'm not going to be in here till I'm 100 years old, and I got other things I want to do. And so I just need to figure, I'm ramping this thing up right now, and I just need to figure what the ramp down looks like and how I dispose of all the great things I've built here, and the timing and the decision points, the moments in time of when that is right to do. Doing some skill building. Yeah, so that was the point of that. I have designed some things I cut out, like I make ornaments for the big football games that happen. main one being the Army Navy football game each year. I've designed an ornament that I laser cut, paint, all this. Since it's my own design, I can put that design file out there on Etsy and sell the design file so someone else can market those into those too. The beauty of that is I probably make as much money on each time I sell the digital design as the profit I make when I sell the physical product. I don't know if I said that right, so I'm going to say it again. I will probably make as much profit on the digital file as I will making the physical product from that digital file and selling it once you consider the time, painting it, all these different things. So I want to design a few different, because I know I've bought a number of these files because you can buy them for $2, $3, whatever. So it's really cheap to get them, and then you're licensed to be able to sell them. But it's like, no, if I can make $2, $3 every time I sell that design, well, I don't care if you get more customers to make them, then you're making them. But eventually I get rid of the shop, but I'm still selling the design. So that is some of the skill building I'm working on is just my design skills to make the digital product. And then also fabrication. I want to, for 3D design, for 3D printing, because I'm sure even when the shop's gone, I'll keep a 3D printer around because they are the coolest thing ever. And I want to learn Fusion 360 to be able to make my own designs in there so I can sell those things too. Again, it becomes, I can sell the files or I can sell, the physical product as well. And just always working my skill and process, learning different ways to do different things. And most projects I take on involve something I've never done before. And maybe it's a bad habit I have of saying, oh, I can do that, and signing on to something I've never actually done or can't do. Well, never actually done and can't do are two different things. Something I've never actually done, however, I can learn to do most things. So I try to include learning, keeping the brain malleable, and stretching my skills that way. And again, I'm documenting these processes, trying not to perform them. Because if this were a performance, boy, I would have, not only not gotten the Academy Award or the Emmy Award or the Tubi Award or whatever you call the things, they would probably fine me and make me have paid something. This isn't a performance. This is just me documenting me. Why does any of this matter? Well, the new skills can lead to new products. And again, I'm not really focused on the products, but I'm focused on the discovery of things and coming up with new stuff. So again, process over the output, process over product. All right, I'm going to keep using content as documentation, not performance, and just leaving these artifacts out here like it's going to be a Monday morning live. It's going to be a Friday afternoon or a Friday morning essay that gets written. So leaving these artifacts out there of documenting the process, documenting the things I'm doing in the studio, in life, and then the content. This is where I would say I do some content creation, is after taking this raw, horrible mess of a live stream, and if there's a couple nuggets that are worth extracting to emphasize a point on something, I will pull those out to do that. So right now, and I think through this entire live stream, which has gone on for 47 minutes at this point, but the first couple minutes were technical errors, and the next 45 minutes were just my own errors. I think we'll bring this to a close at this point. So there were exactly 0 people that watched. That's fine. Maybe in the future someone will. Maybe you'll watch a clip I pull out of this. That's all cool too. I'm not worried about it. Again, this is me this is for me to use to document, to create these artifacts. And if someone else can gain some value from that too, that's awesome. I already know I'm going to get a comment from one old friend of mine who'll be like, yes, that is too long, but it's half as long as last week. So, hey, I've made some improvement there. All right. I think that's it. I think that is it. So this is ValorCraft Workshop. This is ValorCraft Workshop. And this is ValorCraft Workshop. Head, hands, and heart. That's the work. And I'll see you next week.